Will you stay if I undress, human? The human's answer changed her life forever. Rain struck the skywalks in straight lines. The glass terrace shivered with each gust from the sea vents below the station. Kelvin stood at the doorframe, jacket soaked, breath steady. Water tracked from his sleeves to his knuckles and dripped to the luminous floor in a slow, even rhythm. Inside, the apartment kept a soft blue light. Floor vents pushed warm air. The faint scent of Larn fruit incense mixed with damp cloth and metal. Varel watched him from behind a sheer curtain. Her blue skin held a low, natural glow. Her long blonde hair was damp at the tips from earlier balcony mist. She noted the set of his shoulders, the way he squared his stance without aggression, and how his eyes moved to each corner of the room once and then stopped. She disliked flinching. He did nothing that asked her to. She unlatched the terrace door. The seal released with a clean click. Wind pushed in and lifted the curtain a hand's breadth. He entered and stayed just inside the threshold, boots planted on the mat. "Kelvin Hale," he said. "Survey crew. Outer ring sensors." His voice was even. No apology. No edge. "Varel," she said. "Registered tenant. Tower 19, level 6. You're far from crew quarters." "They're full," he said. "Storm overflow." She noted the sling of tools against his thigh, the contract tag on his sleeve, the cold set in his hands. He noted one table, one chair, an unused second cup, a folded blanket on the couch, the small disorder in the strip light panel above the terrace door. Her chest tightened. The rule pressed in. Widows without a partner lost their permit. Time was nearly out. She had chosen not to remarry. She would not choose a man under a deadline. Yet the form would still arrive in 3 days. Inspectors would scan for cohabitation stability. Patterns mattered. Doors opening. 2 sets of clothes. Shared routines. The law called it order. She called it erasure. "If I undress," she said, voice steady, "will you stay human?" Not for a single night. For proof. Kelvin met her eyes and held them. He had workstations where people traded warmth for a signature. He did not mistake the question. He understood the stakes. He had his own. His contract paid by the day. He needed a door that locked and a few hours of heat. He also needed to like himself in the morning. "If you undress, I stay," he said. "I sleep in the chair. I cook first. You set pace." Her brow lifted. She had expected hunger, bargaining, bravado. He gave her sequence, food, and control. It disarmed her more than any show of need. "Kitchen," she said and turned. The apartment was small and precise. She kept it that way on purpose. Control in tight spaces meant fewer surprises. She pulled reef ram flank from a narrow cooler and set a cast pan on the stove. He peeled off his jacket and thermal, wrung the sleeves in the sink, and hung both over the vent. Pale scars lined one rib. Not fresh, not dramatic. He washed his hands and reached for the knife. "This pulls," he said, testing the edge. "It cuts fruit," she said. "Fruit forgives. Meat doesn't." He slid a small steel from his sling and drew the blade along it in short, even strokes. The scrape set a steady rhythm that calmed the room. Rain softened against the glass. The strip lights buzzed, then evened out. She watched his wrist, the clean angle of his thumb, the way he kept pressure exact. Competence eased her breathing. She hadn't felt safe around a man's hands in months. He salted the flank with black salt until the surface roughened. He pressed it flat to the hot pan. The first contact hissed. Fat popped. He tilted and basted with the hot juices, face still, knuckles close to the heat. The scent of real meat pushed back the smell of rain. He did not talk to fill the air. He worked until the edges browned, flipped once, and rested on a board. "Plates," she said, and set 2, then paused, lifted one back, and left a single plate between them. "We share." Agreed. They ate standing at the counter. He sliced, fed her first, then himself. She watched how he chewed, slow, focused, not starved, not showy. He watched how she steadied the plate with one hand and kept her shoulders square, no apology for wanting food and company at the same time. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "A door that locks," he said. "Work that pays on time. A warm vent. Coffee in the morning. The right to stand beside you without being told to move." You can stand beside me, she said. But I set pace. Good, he said. He liked direct terms. He wiped the board and pan, shut off the flame, and folded the rag in a neat square. She noticed each small choice. No noise, no performance, only completion. It calmed the pressure in her chest and replaced it with a solid, painful relief. I should confirm your background, she said. I need facts if inspectors ask. Trained as a deep space navigator, he said. Took survey work after a cut in routes. I troubleshoot sensor arrays. I don't drink on shift. I don't gamble my tools. I won't bring anyone here. My plan is simple. Finish this contract. Save enough to choose my next post. Stay out of trouble. Sleep warm. She believed him. The way he stacked his answers felt like wiring a panel. Direct line, clear load, no sparks. She placed her palms on the counter. The wrap held to her frame in clean lines. She lifted its edge. The Christofiber slid to the floor. No flourish. No coyness. A deliberate act in a city that made intimacy into paperwork. Her skin held a faint interior glow at her collarbones and wrists. She stood straight, chin high. She watched his face, not his hands. He did not reach for her. He looked, then turned to the balcony panel, pried the housing, and reseated a loose ribbon. The light stabilized. He dated the inside of the panel in neat block letters. You label things, she said. So I remember what I owe, he said. The answer caught her off guard. A rush of heat moved up her neck. Not shame, recognition. She had been living alone long enough to fear every small slip. He had arrived with order and a willingness to stand still without taking. What is your mission here? She asked. She wanted it on record in her head. Keep the outer ring sensors online, he said. Storm season stresses them out. If they fail, airflow across the skywalks goes wrong and people get hurt. My task is basic. Inspect, repair, document the fix, return safe. She nodded. Clear work. Necessary. No arrogance. And your mission? He asked, meeting her gaze. Keep my home, she said. Not through remarriage. Through proof of a life I choose. The station calls me unstable because I grieved past their schedule. I call that healing. My mission is to stay, earn, cook, sleep, and not let a form define me. Understood, he said. The word held weight. Agreement. Not pity. She stepped close enough to feel his body heat. She took his wrist and placed his hand on the counter instead of her hip. Firm boundary. He nodded once. She reached for his shirt on the rack and pressed it into his chest. Wear it, she said. You look like you belong here when you do. He pulled it on. It clung cool to his back. He waited. You sleep in the chair tonight, she said. Door open. Inspectors read patterns. They're trained to see routine, not theatrics. Then we build routine, he said. They cleaned the pan together. Shoulders brushed. Neither apologized. The contact felt like a fresh seal on a work order. He checked the time. Storm peak had passed. The hum under the floor evened. She watched his hands again, broad, steady, veins visible, a roughness earned through work instead of fights. She felt the pull to close distance fast and end the ache. She also felt the old fear slide up her spine, the fear of giving anything under pressure and regretting it later. She measured both and made a decision that fit her rules and his. Say my name, she said, standing in the bedroom doorway. The room behind her was simple. A narrow bed, a folded shawl, a small shelf with 2 old ceramic cups. Varel, he said. Again, Varel. Her shoulders eased. Good. He dragged the chair 2 hands breadth from the doorway and sat. He set his sling as a pillow. He angled himself so he saw the door, the vent, and the counter. He was ready to stand if needed and ready to sleep if allowed. You'll stay through morning, she said. I will be here when the kettle whistles, he said. That is enough, she said. Silence settled in steps. Rain softened to a patter. The strip lights dimmed to a low wash. She lay back and watched him breathe. His eyes closed, then opened once to check the panel he had fixed. It told her more than any promise. He took care of small things and checked them twice. She spoke into the dim. There is one more rule. I'm listening, he said. If I ask you to join me, she said, you move slow. Fade to black before it turns messy. I decide when we cross that line. I agree, he said. I don't want to wake up wishing I moved faster. At first light, she shifted under the sheet. She felt the cold edge where the bed ended and the chair began. She remembered the long night before the storm and the longer month before that. She remembered her hands shaking at the elevator panel after the last inspector left. She was tired of shaking. You can share the bed if you are cold, she said. I'm warm, he said, but I will join you if you ask. I am asking. He stood. He crossed the short space. He lay on the edge of the mattress, on top of the cover. No grab, no rush. He set his hand in the open space between them, palm up. She placed her hand in his. Their fingers folded together. Her breathing left the tight, shallow rhythm she had lived in for too long. He watched her face for any sign of doubt. He saw none. He stayed where he was. They did not speak. The quiet held. The station shifted from storm night to working day. Then the kettle whistled. He rose, shut off the heat, ground furlan seeds with the heel of his hand, and brewed the coffee dark. He brought her a cup. She sat up, hair tangled, eyes clear. She drank. Her shoulders dropped as the warmth spread. Good, she said. Good, he echoed. An early chime sounded at the door. Inspectors never waited long after storms. Varel set her cup down with steady hands. Her stomach tightened anyway. Old fear did not vanish in one night. Kelvin rolled his sleeves once. He moved to her side and faced the door with her. He did not block. He did not hide. He stood where the scanner would see him. The room smelled like meat, hot water, and rain-washed glass. Light from the terrace slid across the floor in a clean sheet. Let them in, he said, calm and sure. She nodded, lifted the latch, and opened the door. The door slid open with a soft hydraulic hiss. Two enforcement clerks stood in the corridor, both in pale gray uniforms, faces blank with procedural courtesy. One held a tablet already recording. The other scanned the room with polite disinterest. Varel's stomach tightened. She forced her shoulders straight and adjusted the shawl over her arms. Kelvin stepped slightly forward, not to shield her, but to stand level with her. Routine inspection, the taller clerk said. Cohabitation verification for Unit 19-6B. His tone was neutral. Not cruel, not kind, the sound of someone who had done this 100 times. Varel nodded once. You may enter. The clerk stepped over the threshold. The scanner beeped quietly as it registered movement. Kelvin's hand rested loosely on the counter, visible calm. His jacket and tools hung in plain sight near the vent, exactly where he'd left them. The chair beside the open bedroom door still showed the slight indent of where he'd sat through the night. The female clerk looked up from her tablet. Mr. Hale, correct? Temporary worker. Contract 19B. Kelvin met her eyes. Yes. She glanced at Varel. And you share residence for the duration of his employment? Varel's throat was dry, but her voice didn't waver. Yes. He assists with maintenance during storm periods. We share meals. He remains overnight. The female clerk's gaze lingered for half a second too long. Understood. Please maintain activity logs. We'll schedule follow-up in 3 days. When the door shut, the hum of turbines filled the silence again. Varel let out the breath she'd been holding. Kelvin turned, his expression unreadable, but his jaw tight. They look for patterns, she said quietly. Not for truth. I noticed, he replied. He loosened his sleeves, rolled them down, and looked around the apartment. You did fine. She nodded, though her pulse still raced. It wasn't fear of being caught. She had done nothing wrong. It was the humiliation of being measured by a system that counted human warmth like currency. Kelvin stepped to the small kitchenette and set a pan on the stove. You have more of that reef ram left. Yes, she said, moving to the cooler. What? Cooking smell lingers, he said. Makes the place feel used. Looks honest. She watched him work, precise again, deliberate. His hands were steady, his movements efficient. The sound of meat sizzling filled the space, grounding her nerves. Do you always follow rules this carefully? She asked. He gave a short, quiet laugh. Rules keep machines running. People too, sometimes, but only the ones worth keeping. She leaned against the counter. You sound like someone who's lost before. I have, he said simply. Lost a lot, but not everything. The answer was too honest. It carried something heavier beneath it, the kind of weight people stop describing because words make it worse. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. They ate together at the same counter. The rain outside had stopped. Through the terrace glass, the ocean clouds glowed under sunlight filtering through the dome's mirrors. The city below them looked perfect, sterile, distant, quiet. "Were you married?" Kelvin asked, not prying, just factual. "Yes," Varel said. He was a systems advisor, assigned to the same district. His shuttle decompressed during a transfer 3 years ago. Kelvin's fork paused midair. "I'm sorry. I'm not," she said, then shook her head softly, regret flashing across her face. "That sounds cruel. I mean, I'm done apologizing for being alive when he isn't. The city expects grief to end on schedule. Mine didn't. That's the crime they see." Kelvin studied her, not with pity, but comprehension. "And the permit? It expires in 5 days if I don't pass the stability scan." He nodded. "Then we pass it." The simplicity of his answer startled her. No promise of rescue. No sympathy. Just a practical statement, like tightening a loose screw. It was strangely comforting. She reached for the small mug he'd set beside her and took a sip of the Froen seed coffee. Bitter, earthy, real. "You're a strange man," Kelvin hailed. He wiped the counter with the same rag from the night before. "I get that a lot." For the next few hours, the day unfolded quietly. He worked on her terrace lights, aligning the mounts while she cleaned and rearranged the room to look lived in. Every few minutes, they spoke, small exchanges that built a rhythm. "You don't talk much," she said at one point. "I talk when it matters," he replied. "Then why stay? You could have gone back to crew quarters once the storm cleared." Kelvin tested the light connection, sparks flashing. "Because you asked me to." The answer was simple, but it landed deep. She turned back to the sink, hiding the flicker of warmth on her face. When evening came, the city lights rose through the mist. The ocean below caught reflections of gold and silver. Kelvin sat by the window, checking his toolkit. Varel watched him from the kitchen. Her pulse still quickened whenever he looked her way, not out of fear, but because of how calm he seemed when she wasn't. He glanced at her. "You could stop watching." "I wasn't." "You were." She smiled despite herself. "Do you always notice everything?" "Only when I'm staying somewhere I don't plan to leave," he said. That silenced her. It wasn't romantic. It was steady, matter of fact, and that was what made it hit harder. Later, when they both stood on the terrace, the wind came soft off the sea vents. The city stretched in quiet grids of light. She crossed her arms, shivering slightly. He noticed, removed his jacket, and held it out. "It's still damp," she said. "Warmer than nothing," he replied. She took it, pulled it around her shoulders, and looked out. "You think this works?" Pretending to be stable. Kelvin leaned on the railing. "It's not pretending if it helps you breathe again." She turned to him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "What do you know?" "That you'd rather stand out here cold than inside pretending to be fine." She blinked, unsure how to respond. Then she laughed once, small, sharp, almost disbelieving. "You watch too closely, human. Observation keeps me alive," he said. "Same as you." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was tense, charged, not with fear, but with something neither wanted to name too soon. Inside, lights dimmed automatically to night mode. She stepped back, brushing past him. The brief touch of her arm against his wrist made her heart skip. He didn't move, didn't pull away. "Good night, Kelvin," she said. "Good night, Varel." He watched her walk toward the bedroom. Slow, deliberate, the glow of her skin fading with distance. The door remained open, just like before. He sat in the same chair, hands folded, eyes on the quiet ocean through the glass. But this time, when he finally closed his eyes, he didn't feel like a guest. He felt like someone who, for the first time in years, had stopped drifting. Morning light filtered through the translucent balcony panels, pale and clean. The hum of Orange Station's turbines had softened to a steady pulse, the kind that only came when the storm had fully passed. Kelvin was already awake. He sat on the edge of the chair, boots on, eyes steady on the ocean clouds below. The vent air carried a faint metallic tang mixed with the smell of cooked meat from a night before. Varel emerged quietly from her room, barefoot, wearing the same oversized shirt he'd left folded on the chair. The fabric slipped down one shoulder, catching the morning light against her blue skin. She stopped at the counter, hands on the edge, watching him in silence. "You sleep?" he asked without turning. "For the first time in months," she said softly. Kelvin nodded once. "Good." He stood and crossed to the small kitchenette. He filled the kettle, lit the heat coil, and opened the tin of Frozen seed coffee. His movements were slow, methodical, almost mechanical, the habits of a man used to structure. Varel leaned against the counter, studying him again. Something about his steadiness fascinated her. He wasn't kind in the way others pretended to be. His calm came from discipline, not sentiment. "You don't seem like a man who stays in one place," she said. "I don't," he replied. "But sometimes the right place holds still long enough." She tilted her head. "And is this that place?" He met her eyes briefly. For now, there was honesty in it, not romance. She appreciated that. He didn't promise anything he couldn't guarantee. That made her trust him more than words ever could. She took the mug he offered her. The smell of coffee grounded her thoughts. For a moment, she let herself imagine that this morning was normal, that she was simply sharing breakfast with someone she'd chosen, not someone she needed for survival. The idea felt dangerous, almost luxurious. As they ate, the city outside stirred. Hover trams glided along the outer skywalks. Distant announcements echoed faintly through the glass. Residency verifications, market hours, environmental alerts. Kelvin listened, brow furrowed slightly. "You hate noise," she said. "I prefer signals that mean something," he replied. "You used to work planet-side, didn't you? Deep space routes. Survey, nav 20 years. Why leave?" He hesitated. The question was simple, but the answer wasn't. He set his mug down. "On the last run, we lost an outpost in orbit. We were supposed to recover the logs. My captain ordered us to pull out before everyone was accounted for." He paused, the muscles in his jaw flexing once. "I didn't agree, so I stayed. Lost my ship. Got a medal I never wanted. After that, contract were all I had." Varel listened without interrupting. She noticed his tone. No self-pity, no pride. Just fact. She respected that. "And now you repair sensors for a living," she said. He nodded. "Easier to fix machines than people." Her expression softened. "Not always." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of understanding neither of them spoke aloud. Later that morning, Varel prepared for her work shift at the Archives Division, an underpaid data role that kept her permit active. Kelvin watched her pull on her long coat and tighten the slim belt at her waist. She caught him watching and raised an eyebrow. "What?" she asked. "Your coat's torn at the hem." She looked down, saw the small rip, and sighed. "It's been like that for weeks." "I'll fix it," he said. "You sew." "I learned. Space teaches you that no one's coming to fix your jacket for you." She smiled faintly. "Then you can fix mine tonight." "I will." Before she left, she turned at the door. "The inspectors will return tomorrow for data verification. They'll check our shared activity log." Kelvin nodded. "Then we'll give them what they want." "They'll expect routine," she said. "Meals. Shared hours. Some recorded interaction." He gave a small shrug. "Then we'll have dinner again." Her lips curved slightly. "It almost sounds normal when you say it." "Then we're doing it right," he said. When she was gone, Kelvin stayed by the terrace. The city stretched below, perfect, orderly, and human. He watched a cargo drone glide past, its shadow sliding across the sea glass floor. He understood systems like this. They were built to maintain balance by eliminating exceptions. Varel was an exception that made her target, even if no one said it outright. He turned from a view and began tidying the apartment. It wasn't just habit, it was strategy. Every detail had to look consistent. 2 mugs drying, 2 sets of utensils, the small dent in the couch cushion for where he'd sat. To the inspectors, that would matter more than truth. When Varel returned that evening, the room smelled faintly of salt and grilled meat. She froze in the doorway, surprised. Kelvin stood at the stove, sleeves rolled, pans steaming. "You cooked," she said. "Smells help pass inspection," he said. "Smells like real food," she said, stepping closer. "Not the ration blocks most men live on." "Old habit," he replied. You eat better, you think better. She watched him plate the food, thin slices of brine boar with seared Zyron berries and steamed root strips. The detail stunned her. No one had cooked for her in years. Her throat tightened, but she forced a steady tone. You didn't have to. He looked at her, steady as always. You asked me to stay. Staying includes dinner. That answer disarmed her again. Simple, grounded, real. They sat across from each other. Outside, the city lights glowed through the mist. The air between them felt heavier than before. Not uncomfortable, just charged. She found herself watching his hands as he ate, the precise movements, the quiet discipline. You fix things because you don't like disorder, she said. He glanced at her. No, because I hate waste. And what am I? Waste you're fixing. He looked at her directly. No, someone worth the effort. The words hit deeper than he probably intended. Her heartbeat quickened. She looked down, pretending to focus on her food. Varel, he said quietly. She looked up. You don't have to keep proving you deserve a home, he said. You already have one, at least while I'm here. She swallowed, unsure whether to thank him or tell him he was wrong. Instead, she said, You talk like you've already decided what I need. I haven't, he said. I'm just paying attention. She stood then, restless, crossing to the window. The reflection of the city lights rippled across her skin. You don't understand what it's like. Every day, the system reminds me that I'm only stable if I'm attached to someone. I've spent 3 years trying not to vanish into that rule. I think you understand it better than anyone, he said quietly. She turned, eyes sharp but not angry. Why are you really here, Kelvin? He took a breath. Because someone has to be, and because I don't like seeing people pushed into corners. For the first time, her defenses slipped. She stepped closer. The air between them tightened. His eyes didn't move from hers. He didn't reach for her. He waited. The silence carried a question neither of them voiced. Then she broke it, her voice almost a whisper. Stay tonight. In the bed. Not because they expect it. Because I do. He studied her face, searching for fear, for doubt. He found none. Only exhaustion, honesty, and a quiet need for something simple. Human closeness without transaction. He nodded once. All right. That night, they lay side by side on the narrow bed. The city hummed steady through the glass. No words, no movement beyond their breathing. Her hand rested lightly on his chest, not seeking, just confirming he was real. He kept still, his pulse even under her palm. For the first time in years, she slept without locking the door. And for the first time in years, he slept knowing someone wanted him to stay. Outside, Oren Station turned above the turquoise world. Perfect, polished, indifferent. While inside one quiet apartment, two people who were never meant to share a home began to build something the system could not measure. The morning air inside the apartment was quiet and heavy with the scent of cooked meat from the night before. The sky beyond the glass terrace was pale and streaked with gold, sunlight breaking through the upper layers of sea mist. Varel woke slowly, her eyes adjusting to the brightness. Kelvin was already up, sitting at the edge of the bed, pulling on his boots. He didn't notice her at first. His mind was somewhere else, calculating the day ahead. You start early, she said, her voice rough with sleep. He turned slightly, the corner of his mouth lifting. Work starts when the light hits the vents. That's the deal out here. You never rest, she said. He tied the last lace, stood, and looked out at the horizon. Rest is something people do when they have the luxury to stop thinking. She studied his profile, the scars along his jaw, the calm posture, the faint exhaustion that lingered behind his eyes. He was a man who carried his order with him. But now, for the first time, she wondered what kept him so disciplined, what he was still running from. Kelvin, she said softly, do you ever miss the silence of deep space? He glanced back. Sometimes. But silence isn't the same as peace. Out there, it's just emptiness. Here, he paused, searching for words. Here, at least there's noise worth staying for. Her chest tightened at that. She looked away, pretending to reach for the folded shirt at the end of the bed. The air between them carried a strange familiarity now. Not comfort exactly, but the kind of understanding that grows in close quarters when two people stop pretending they don't need each other. Kelvin moved to the counter and started the kettle. You working today? Yes. Morning shift. Data verification. Inspectors? They'll recheck my record after the midday cycle. If everything looks consistent, the case closes. He nodded, then glanced at the wall terminal, an old unit, cracked at the edges. You still have your husband's access code stored here. She froze for half a second. You looked through the logs? I saw the date when I fixed your lighting system. He said, voice calm, not defensive. It still pings his ID once a month. Maybe habit. Maybe the system won't let go. Her face softened. I kept the code because erasing it felt like killing him twice. But now it just reminds me of how long I've been stuck. Kelvin said nothing for a while. Then, delete it today. You don't owe ghosts a residence permit. She stared at him, stunned by the bluntness. Not cruelty, but clarity. You make it sound easy. It isn't, he said. That's why it matters. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned away and began dressing. The silence between them wasn't cold. It was full of unspoken questions neither wanted to touch yet. By late morning, Varel had left for a shift. Kelvin stayed behind, repairing a sensor unit near the balcony rail. The hum of the ocean turbines echoed faintly below. He thought about what she had said the night before. Stay, not because they expect it, because I do. It replayed in his mind while his hands worked on autopilot. He hadn't realized until now how much he'd missed hearing someone ask him to stay. He finished the repair, wiped his hands on a rag, and checked the time. 1100 hours. She'd be in the data wing now, facing the usual stares. Widows in that sector always drew whispers. He wondered how she endured it every day, how she managed to walk into a world that kept deciding what she was worth. When she returned near midday, she looked tired. Her hair was pulled back, and a thin sheen of sweat lined her collarbone. She set her coat down and leaned against the counter. Inspectors came early, she said. They scanned my records. The logs matched. Your presence saved the file. Good, he said simply. But they asked questions. Too many. They want to come again, talk to you this time. Kelvin nodded once, unbothered. Then I'll talk. She studied him. You don't sound worried. Worry doesn't fix things, he said. Preparation does. He was too calm. It unsettled her in a way she couldn't explain. You talk like someone who's done this before. He didn't look at her when he answered. Inspections. Interrogations. Yes. Her voice lowered. Military. Something close to it, he said. Federation logistics. We inspected colonies. Watched people fall through cracks while policies stayed clean. And you quit. I refused an order, he said. They call that quitting when it doesn't fit their paperwork. She stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You saved someone, didn't you? He met her gaze, steady, almost challenging. More than once. Didn't change much. Varel studied him for a long moment. It was the first time he'd said anything personal beyond surface details. There was a tension behind his calm, guilt shaped like discipline. She recognized it because she carried her own version of it. He turned away first, pretending to check the coffee level. They'll be here in the afternoon. What do they want to see? Consistency, she said. Shared space. Shared meals. Evidence that we're not pretending. He nodded slowly. Then let's not pretend. When the inspectors arrived, the same pair as before, Kelvin opened the door himself. His posture was relaxed but firm, the kind of presence that quietly controlled a room. Varel stood beside him, expression composed. The female clerk began scanning the living area. You've been cohabiting for 7 cycles now, she said, scrolling through her tablet. Everything looks compliant, but we still need visual confirmation of your daily routine. Kelvin's eyes flicked to Varel, then back to the clerk. Routine. Yes, the clerk said. Interaction. Living proof. It's procedural. Kelvin stepped closer, his tone even but sharper. You mean you want to see 2 people act like they care about each other? That's not data collection. That's voyeurism dressed as law. The room went still. The male clerk's fingers hesitated above his scanner. Varel's breath caught. The female clerk's face tightened. Mr. Hale, I suggest you refrain from commentary. He didn't. I suggest you stop treating human connection like a metric. There was a tense pause. Then Varel placed a hand lightly on his arm, a silent signal. Enough. He looked down at her, then stepped back. Everything is fine, she said to the inspectors. We understand the procedure. You'll have what you need. The inspectors completed the scan in silence. When they left, Kelvin exhaled slowly, running a hand over his jaw. You didn't have to defend me, she said softly. I wasn't, he said. I was defending the idea of privacy. They'll mark your tone as non-compliant. He shrugged. Then I'll fix that too. She looked at him for a long time, not angry, not afraid, just thoughtful. You're going to make enemies if you keep talking like that. I've had worse, he said. That night, the apartment was darker than usual. The wind outside pushed soft waves against the glass panels. Varel sat near the window, watching the city's lower levels flicker. Kelvin repaired a tear in her coat, quiet and focused. After a long silence, she said, I deleted the code. He looked up. Your husband's? She nodded. It felt wrong, but freeing. He smiled faintly. Good. You did the hard part. What's the easy part? Living with it. She stood, crossed him, and rested a hand on the back of his neck. It wasn't a gesture of passion, but of gratitude, simple and real. He didn't move for a moment, then turned his head slightly, so her fingers brushed his jaw. Stay, she said quietly. Even after the permit clears. He met her eyes. If I stay, it's not for the permit. Then why? Because you remind me what normal used to feel like, he said. Her lips parted slightly, as if to respond, but she didn't. Instead, she leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. The moment lingered, quiet, human, grounding. Outside, the turbines pulsed steady, and for the first time since arriving, Kelvin realized he no longer felt like a guest. He felt like someone with a reason to stop running. The night stretched long, filled with slow breathing and the unspoken understanding that whatever began as necessity had already shifted into something neither of them could name, something the inspectors would never measure. The storm season ended 2 days later, leaving the city washed clean. Orange Station gleamed under steady daylight, its towers of glass and chrome reflecting soft blue hues from the ocean below. From the terrace, the air smelled faintly of ozone and sea salt. Inside, the apartment had begun to feel lived in. 2 cups on the counter, a coat hung beside his jacket, small signs that told the truth without needing words. Kelvin stood by the balcony, tightening a loosened mount on the rail, while Varel watched from the kitchen, slicing root vegetables for dinner. The routine had become natural. He repaired. She cooked. They shared quiet mornings and longer evenings. Neither of them had said it aloud, but both understood it now. This arrangement was no longer just about a permit. Inspectors confirmed my renewal, she said, breaking the silence. Her tone was calm, but a smile tugged faintly at her lips. I'm officially stable. Kelvin turned, resting the small wrench on the rail. Congratulations. Guess I'm unemployed now. She smirked. You could stay on as the house engineer. He stepped inside, wiping his hands on a towel. I don't work for free. What's your price? She asked, half teasing. Dinner. Every night. She laughed quietly, the kind of laugh he'd never heard from her before. Softer, lighter. That's affordable. He leaned against the counter, watching her move between the stove and sink. The air felt easier between them now. The tension that once filled every pause had shifted into something warmer, quieter, alive. Still, beneath it, a different question lingered. Now that her permit was safe, what came next for them? Varel, he said, tone low but steady. Now that you've got your status back, what will you do? She didn't look up. Keep my job. Maybe move to a higher sector. I'll be allowed to apply again now. And me? Her knife paused mid-slice. You can stay if you want, or leave. The choice was always yours. He watched her closely. She was telling the truth, but the slight tremor in her hand said what her voice didn't. She didn't want him to go. He stepped closer, his voice soft. I didn't ask about the law. I asked about you. She turned to face him. Then I don't know, she said honestly. For months, I lived waiting for inspectors, for rules, for pity. And now, when I should feel free, I just feel empty. Kelvin reached out, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. That's what happens when survival ends. You start figuring out how to live. Her eyes lifted to his, tired but searching. "And what about you? You'll move to another colony, won't you?" "Maybe," he said, "but not yet." Something changed in her face, a quiet relief she tried to hide. She turned back to the stove, but her voice softened. "Then I'll make enough for two." Dinner that night was simple: grilled root slices, reef ram strips, and hot larn fruit broth. They ate on the floor near the window, plates between them. Kelvin watched the city lights flicker across her face. She looked different now, not polished like the women in the upper districts, but alive, vivid, unguarded. After they finished eating, Varel leaned back against the wall, holding her cup of broth. "Do you ever get tired of fixing things?" she asked. "Never," he said. "Things break because they're used. That's how you know they mattered." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's why I'm still here." Kelvin studied her face, and for a moment, she looked away, embarrassed by her own honesty. He wanted to tell her she didn't need to justify being alive, but he knew she wouldn't accept that kind of comfort. She valued truth, not sympathy. Instead, he said, "Then don't let this place turn you into another number. Stay difficult." Her laugh came quiet, almost like a sigh. "You make rebellion sound like breathing." "Maybe it is," he said. "You just forgot how." That night, they cleaned together. No words, just quiet motions, shoulders brushing, movements sinking naturally. When the lights dimmed, she looked at him across the room, her expression unreadable. "You know," she said, "when this began, I thought I was using you." "I know," he said calmly. "And now?" she asked. "Now I think you saved me from living like a machine," he said. The honesty in his tone silenced her. She walked toward him, close enough to see the faint scar near his temple. He didn't move, didn't flinch. She reached up and traced it with her fingertips. "What happened here?" she asked. "Debris. During a mission years ago. It healed clean. Didn't feel like it," he said quietly. She lowered her hand, but he caught it before it dropped. His fingers were warm, steady. He didn't squeeze, just held it there, letting her decide whether to pull away. She didn't. "Do you ever wonder," she said after a moment, "if we only found each other because the world forced us to?" He shook his head. "The world doesn't create people like this. It just gives them reasons to stop pretending they don't need each other." Her breath caught at the simplicity of it. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The hum of the turbines filled the silence, steady and constant. Later, they stood together on the terrace, watching the endless ocean clouds roll beneath the arcology. The wind was cool, brushing against their faces. Varel rested her elbows on the rail. "It's strange," she said. "For so long, I thought freedom meant being alone. Now it feels more like being seen." Kelvin glanced sideways. "Then maybe that's what you were waiting for." "Maybe," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The quiet stretched again, not uncomfortable but close. She turned her head toward him. "When they come for the final inspection, they'll mark the case complete. That means you'll be cleared to transfer." "I know," he said. She hesitated, her voice tightening. "Will you?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze stayed on the horizon, the slow movement of clouds below. Finally, he said no. "I think I'll stay until you tell me to leave." Her hand brushed his lightly, testing the distance. He didn't pull back. The simple contact carried more weight than anything either had said that night. Below them, the city lights reflected on the sea like scattered stars. Inside, the kettle began to whistle. Neither of them moved to stop it. Varel smiled faintly. "You'll burn the water." Kelvin's lips curved. "Let it burn." And for the first time since they'd met, neither of them looked away. The night, the hum of the turbines, and the unspoken truth between them, all of it settled into something wordless, fragile, and real. For now, they didn't need to define what they were. It was enough that neither was alone anymore. The next morning came quietly. The kettle, forgotten the night before, still sat scorched on the stove, the smell faint but real, proof they'd stopped caring about small mistakes. Varel moved through the kitchen in silence, hair tied back, wearing his shirt again. She poured new water into the kettle without a word. Kelvin was at the terrace window, watching the lower city lights fade as the sun climbed over the mist. "You didn't sleep?" she said. He shook his head. "Didn't need to. Thinking again, he gave a small smile. It's how I stay human. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. You make it sound like a job. It is, he said, when I almost quit before I met you. The words caught her off guard. There was no tenderness in his tone, just a blunt kind of honesty that settled somewhere deep. She turned to pour the coffee, her hand trembling slightly from the sudden weight of emotion she didn't want to show. I never asked, she said after a moment. Why were you even outside that night? In the storm? He took a sip from his cup before answering. They cut housing for contract workers when repairs slowed. I didn't have quarters assigned. I'd been sleeping in the equipment hub until the generator failed. I was just looking for a warm vent. Varel stared at him, realizing how close he'd come to disappearing like the others, the nameless workers the city never recorded. You could have died out there, she said quietly. I could have, he admitted, but I didn't. She looked away, voice low. You make survival sound so simple. It isn't, he said. You just don't think about it until it's done. They both stood there in the calm hum of the apartment, two people who had stopped being strangers without ever deciding to. Around midday, a soft chime rang through the hall. Kelvin turned, eyes narrowing. Visitors again? Varel checked the wall terminal. No, it's a message. The screen flickered on, revealing a sterile government seal. Case file 19-6B. Cohabitation stability status. Verified and closed. Her permit was now indefinite. No inspections, no reports, no conditions. She read it twice before she exhaled. It's over. Kelvin watched her face change, the small lift of her shoulders, the soft disbelief. She looked lighter and lost at the same time. So now you're free, he said. She turned to him, voice barely steady. Then what happens to you? He met her gaze. That's your decision. No, she said quickly. You're the one who chose to stay. I stayed because you needed someone to prove you existed, he said. Now you don't need proof. Her throat tightened. Don't tell me that like it's something good. He didn't respond. The silence between them thickened, the kind that meant something important had just changed. That evening, Varel cooked again, but slower this time, as if delaying whatever came next. Kelvin helped without speaking. The air smelled of grilled reef ram and sweet furlan herbs. They ate sitting close, plates touching. She tried to enjoy the food, but it tasted heavy. After dinner, she finally asked the question that had been building all day. When you leave, where will you go? He wiped his hands on a towel. There's always work somewhere. The outer rings need maintenance crews. The pay's bad, but the air's cleaner. And you'll go alone? He looked up at her. That's what I'm good at. Varel's breath hitched. You sound like someone already halfway gone. He set the towel down. You sound like someone who wants me to stay, but won't say it. Her face tightened. If I say it, you'll think it's obligation. Gratitude. And I'm tired of being another transaction. He stepped closer, close enough that the light caught her skin, the faint glow running through her collarbone. Then say it anyway. If it's real, I'll know. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, stay. Kelvin's jaw flexed once, and his hand came up, fingers brushing her hair behind her ear. Slow, careful, steady. Then I will. It wasn't a promise. It was a fact. Later that night, they stood again on the terrace. The sea clouds shifted slowly below, luminous under the city's reflection. Varel leaned against him, arms crossed over her chest, the cool air brushing her bare shoulders. I keep waiting for the city to care, she said. But maybe it's not supposed to. It's not built to care, he said. It's built to measure. And what about us? He turned his head toward her. We stopped being measurable the night you opened the door. Her lips curved faintly. That sounds like something you'd write in a report. I don't write reports anymore. She smiled. Good. They stayed there for a long time, watching the night shift lights move through the lower decks. The silence between them wasn't empty this time. It was full of shared air, shared thought, shared survival. Inside, the terminal blinked with new notifications. Job offers, contract renewals, relocation requests. Kelvin didn't look at them. For once, the future could wait. When they finally went inside, Varel stopped by the door and looked back at him. You know, when I asked you to stay, I wasn't thinking about stability. I was thinking about what it means to feel safe next to someone. Kelvin stepped closer, close enough that his voice dropped to a murmur. Then that's what this is. Safety. Nothing more complicated. She nodded once, a quiet smile breaking through. I can live with that. The wind outside rose slightly, rattling the panels. He reached past her and locked the door. The motion was simple, almost mundane, but for both of them, it meant something neither dared put into words, that after months of survival and formality, this home was finally theirs. No signatures, no inspections, just choice. And when the lights dimmed and the hum of the turbines steadied beneath the floor, the quiet between them was not the emptiness of isolation. It was the sound of two lives learning to exist without permission. The following morning broke warmer than usual, soft mist curling through the glass terraces of Orange Station. Light filtered into the apartment in faint amber stripes, touching the edges of the counter and the folded blanket on the couch. For once, the hum of the turbines felt less mechanical, more like background music to something alive. Kelvin woke to the smell of brewing coffee. Varel was already at the stove, humming under her breath as she stirred the pot. The sound was small but real, a sound of a person who had begun to believe in ordinary days again. "You're up early," he said, voice rough from sleep. She smiled without turning. "Habit. The station doesn't slow down just because I finally can." He sat up on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes. "You always this calm after getting your freedom?" "I'm not calm," she said. "I'm trying to remember what freedom feels like." He stood and walked to her side. The air between them was easy now. He reached for a mug as she poured the coffee. "You'll get used to it," he said. "I don't want to get used to it," she replied. "Getting used to things is how I ended up living like a ghost." He nodded once, understanding that more than he wanted to admit. They ate breakfast near the window, just fruit slices and leftover reef ram from the night before. Outside, the city pulsed quietly. Hovercraft shadows slid over the ocean mist below. Neither of them spoke for a while. Then Varel broke the silence. "Do you miss the places you've left behind?" Kelvin thought about it before answering. "No, I miss what I thought I'd find there. But the places themselves, they're just coordinates. They stop meaning anything once you leave." She studied his face. "Then what keeps you from leaving here?" "You," he said plainly. She froze. He didn't look away, didn't soften the words. He said them like a fact, the same way he said everything that mattered. "I stayed because it made sense," he continued. "But I'm still here because it doesn't anymore. I can't explain that, and I don't want to." Her eyes softened, though she tried not to let him see how much it meant. "You always talk like you're fixing something that's not broken," she said quietly. He leaned back in his chair. "Maybe I'm making sure it never breaks." A faint smile touched her lips. "You don't have to keep proving you belong here, Kelvin." He looked at her for a long moment. "Neither do you." She lowered her gaze, her voice barely audible. "Then maybe we both start over." The rest of the morning passed in small motions. Cleaning, patching, moving furniture they didn't need. The apartment felt less like a survival space and more like a home. Kelvin reattached a loose balcony panel, while Varel rearranged her old archive files into a single cabinet, deleting years of unwanted data logs. It was more than organization. It was erasure of everything that had controlled her. When he finished his work, Kelvin stood by the open terrace. The sky stretched endlessly beyond the glass, bright and clean. "You ever think about leaving Orin?" he asked. She looked up from her files. "Every day," she said. "But not because I hate it. Because I want to know what living somewhere else feels like, without fear, without laws telling me what I should be." He turned to her. "Then let's leave." Her brow furrowed. "What?" "Let's find somewhere quiet. One of the smaller colonies. Somewhere people don't check who you share a room with." She hesitated. "You give up your work?" He shrugged. "Work follows me. Always does. What I want doesn't." For the first time, Varel didn't answer immediately. She looked at him, weighing the offer, the risk, the meaning. "You really think they'd let us leave? A human and an Aaron registering together. They don't get to let us," he said. "We just go." A long silence followed. The hum of the turbines seemed louder now. Then she smiled, small, real, fearless. "All right," she said. "Then we go." That evening, they began packing. Not much, just clothes, tools, and a few essentials. Varel folded a shawl that had belonged to her late husband, then paused. Kelvin noticed and waited. She ran her fingers over the fabric. He wouldn't have wanted me to disappear. Then don't, Kelvin said. Take him with you, in memory. But don't stay here for him. She folded the shawl once more, then set it neatly in the case. He'd have liked you, she said softly. I doubt that, Kelvin said. But I'll take it. When night fell, they stood on the terrace one last time. The city lights shimmered below, stretching across the horizon like a field of stars. Varel's hand found his. She didn't speak, but he knew what it meant. She was ready. What happens if they stop us at the docks? She asked. Then we find another way, he said. And if they ask who we are? He looked at her, eyes steady. We tell them the truth. Two citizens leaving a city that forgot what humanity looks like. The wind swept across the glass, cool and clean. Varel leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. I never thought I'd find peace with someone like you, she murmured. Someone like me? He asked. Human, she said, smiling faintly. Predictable, unshaken, impossible. He chuckled once. And yet you let me stay. Maybe I needed someone who doesn't break when the world does, she said. He turned to her then, the city lights reflecting in her amber eyes. Then let's make sure the world doesn't get another chance. She nodded slowly, her expression soft but certain. The turbines below shifted speed, a signal that the night shuttles were preparing to depart. They stood there a moment longer, neither speaking, until Kelvin reached for the door control. Inside, the packed bags waited by the couch. Their home, once a space of fear and survival, was now just a room full of memories. Ready? He asked. Varel looked around once, then back at him. Yes, let's go before I change my mind. They stepped out into the corridor, side by side. The lights above flickered faintly as the air system cycled. Somewhere deep within the city, the turbines roared, signaling another routine day, one they would no longer be part of. As they crossed the skywalk toward the transport docks, the glass beneath their feet reflected their silhouettes against the ocean below, a human and an alien, walking toward something neither of them had planned, something entirely their own. Behind them, Orin Station remained bright, sterile, and silent, a monument to order that had finally lost its hold on them. Kelvin reached out and took her hand. No inspectors, no codes, just us. Varel smiled at that, a quiet, tired but hopeful smile. Then let's not look back. They didn't. And as the shuttle's engines began to hum, their reflections vanished from the glass, leaving only the light of a city that would never know what it had lost. The shuttle door closed with a muted hiss, sealing out the constant hum of Orin Station. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The cabin lights were dim, a soft amber hue washing across their faces. Varel sat by the narrow window, her hands folded in her lap, watching the station recede, a gleaming island of order against the endless ocean clouds below. Kelvin sat beside her, calm as ever, but his eyes stayed fixed on the reflection of her face in the glass. You don't have to look back, he said quietly. I'm not, she replied. I'm making sure it's really behind me. He nodded. He understood that feeling, the need to see what you've survived, even if it hurts. The shuttle's engines began their ascent burn, pressing them gently into their seats. The light from the upper atmosphere bled through the cabin, soft and blue. Orin grew smaller and smaller until it was just another bright shape floating over the world they were leaving. For the first time since they met, Varel let her body relax fully. Her shoulders dropped, her breath steadied, and her fingers unclenched. Kelvin watched her eyes, how they lost that sharp, defensive tension and turned clear. Feels strange, she said finally. What is? Not being afraid. He leaned back, arms folded. It takes time to learn what to do with peace. She turned to him, voice soft. And you? You've lived in peace before. He shook his head. Not really. I've only known quiet. That's not the same thing. The shuttle leveled out, and gravity softened. Through the window, the sky was no longer blue or black, but a wide expanse of silver haze. Below them, the ocean reflected faint bursts of light from the cities clustered along the equatorial belt. Where will we go? She asked. Kelvin reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded data card, sliding it across the small tray between them. There's a colony called Narration Haven, out past the outer ring. No government patrols, no marriage quotas, no inspection laws. You can just exist there. You've been. He shook his head. Heard about it from a supply runner years ago. Said it's quiet and mostly forgotten. She looked down at the card, then back at him. You plan this. I plan everything, he said. But this is the first thing I actually want. The words hung there for a moment, plain, steady, heavier than they sounded. Varel reached for the card and traced the edge of it with her thumb. I never thought I'd leave Orin, she admitted. I used to dream about it, but I didn't believe I could. That city made me believe my whole worth was tied to a form, a name, a man. And now, he asked, now I just want to be someone who's not afraid to want things again. Kelvin turned toward her, studying her face as she said it. She didn't look like the woman he'd met through the rain that first night. She wasn't trembling or hiding behind rules. There was strength now, quiet but sure, born from everything they'd survived. The shuttle's cabin lights dimmed automatically as they entered hyperspace glide. The hum of the engines became a low vibration beneath their feet. Varel leaned her head back, closing her eyes. Kelvin sat still, watching her, feeling that rare calm settle in. Kelvin, she murmured, eyes still closed. If this place is real, Narration Haven, what do you think will be there? He took a slow breath. Alive. That's enough. She smiled faintly, eyes opening halfway. You always make survival sound so noble. It's not noble, he said. It's just human. Hours later, the shuttle dropped through the outer atmosphere of Narration Haven. The window filled with light. A pale green world veined with rivers that glowed faintly under the twin suns. Small domed habitats dotted the horizon, surrounded by wild forest and quiet plains. It looked nothing like Orin Station. No steel towers, no scanners, no humming corridors. Just open sky and air that seemed to breathe. When the shuttle landed, the airlock opened to a rush of warm wind. They stepped out together. The ground was solid earth, damp, uneven, full of life. The smell of rain-soaked soil filled the air. Varel stopped just outside the landing pad, eyes wide. It's real, she whispered. Kelvin looked around, nodding once. Yeah, real enough to start over. They walked until the noise of the landing pad faded behind them. The colony lay ahead, small dwellings built from local materials, people moving slowly, without hurry. No one stopped them, no one scanned their ID chips, no one cared who they were. Varel turned to him, her hair catching the sunlight. So what now? Kelvin looked out toward the horizon, then back at her. Now we build something that isn't measured. She smiled. You make it sound easy. It's not, he said, and for the first time he smiled too. But we've done harder. As they reached the first ridge, Varel stopped to take one last look at the shuttle, now a distant speck among the clouds. I thought I'd feel guilty, she said softly, leaving everything behind. Do you? She shook her head. No, just free. He stepped closer, reaching out and brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Then that's what will stay. The sun broke through the cloud line, lighting the fields below. For a moment, everything shimmered. The soil, the air, the faint glow under Varel's skin. She took his hand, and they began walking toward the settlement, their shadows stretching long behind them. No alarms, no inspections, no laws, just two survivors walking toward a life that belonged only to them. And as the wind rose and carried the scent of fresh earth through the air, Varel finally understood. She hadn't been rescued. She had been chosen. Kelvin looked down at her, their hands still joined, and said quietly, "We made it." She nodded. "We did." They kept walking, into the open light, into the sound of their own footsteps, into the peace they had earned. And for the first time since either could remember, the world didn't ask for proof. It simply let them live.